So when I was single, I always stayed so away from dating apps just because the concept freaked me out. Hi, I'm Zara. Lovely to meet you.
Hi, I'm Olivia. Lovely to meet you too.
So tell me a bit about what you do.
So I am a journalist and an author of the book called Millennial Love and the host of a podcast of the same name, which is all about exploring the contemporary dating landscape and all of the quirks and complications that involves. I mean, yeah, I write about this stuff all the time, so I know what I'm talking about, but in my own life, it's not necessarily the same.
But you know a lot about love.
Yes, yeah.
So when I was single, I always stayed so away from dating apps just because the concept freaked me out. The idea that I would be connecting with someone who would be looking for a relationship or looking for someone cringed me out, because I thought there's no naturalness, there's no organicness here, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think the thing about meeting someone on a dating app is you know very clearly what you're both there for. So like you say, it does detract from the mystery of it a little bit, because the whole fun of meeting someone in real life is that flirty chat where you're both trying to figure out, oh, do you like me? Oh, I like you too. Whereas on a dating app, you've both swiped right on each other. You already know that there's that kind of mutual connection.
No, and that's how in my head, when I envision meeting someone, it's like you see them across the bar and they're beautiful and you lock eyes and it's so romantic and they get you a drink or you get them a drink or whatever, and then you go for dinner, and that's how it is in my head. So the thought of almost online shopping for a boyfriend, I think, and maybe that's me being extremely, dated in my mentality and watching too many romantic films, like I need to, get with the times, I think.
I think that's what a lot of people think though, because it's so difficult. And also when was the last time you saw a really good rom-com where the couple met on Tinder? It just, the popular culture hasn't caught up with the technology yet. And I think, honestly, we forget that this stuff is still really new. But again, with all of this stuff, I just think it comes down to having an open mind and just realizing that modern love doesn't necessarily look like the things that we've been told it should look like, but that doesn't necessarily make it any less romantic.
I think the modern dating climate is making people actually not want to meet. I think for a lot of people, they can find the companionship just from messaging someone, just from having someone there to speak to talk about their day, chat on their phones to someone, have that companionship, have that rapport with someone without actually the need for meeting.
Yeah, it's interesting that, because I think that's similar to friendships as well, don't you think? Like on social media, it's so easy to have, these kind of social media friendships with people that it's kind of tempting to think, well, this is how I get my social fulfillment. And I think it's the same with dating too. But obviously the difference with dating is there is a physical element to it, to physical intimacy. Yeah. So I think at a certain point, that can only take you so far.
Are there any trends on dating apps that are quite negative? Because I've seen some online.
Yeah, I think this is very much when dating apps started becoming more popular, and initially almost all of these were negative. So it was things like ghosting and breadcrumbing, where you kind of string someone along. And then there are other things that have come out, like there's been a real shift in these so-called trends. Then there was one recently about morning dating, about how people are now going on dates in the morning before work, grabbing a cup of coffee together, going for a walk in the park, and all of these things.
I love that.
And it's like, why has it taken so long for these kind of positive trends to come out? And I think it's because since the pandemic, there's just been there's been a bigger need for kindness.
Where is internet dating at now?
So at the moment, the kind of dating app landscape contributes to about £11.7 billion in the UK economy. So it's absolutely huge, and it's been kind of growing exponentially throughout the last few years, because in the pandemic, obviously, everyone was locked away at home. They were already a massive part of our lives, but now they are even more so, to be honest.
Is it a worry though, how common it's becoming? Because for me, I'm seeing the world of online dating. Like my little brother's on a lot of dating apps, and I just see it like window shopping. Like you're constantly looking at someone's appearance, and I guess you could argue that yes, if you spot someone from across the bar, you do also look at how attractive they are. But this takes it like a whole nother level. Do dating apps make us more picky, would you say?
Definitely. I think because the difference between seeing someone in a bar who you think is attractive and seeing them on a dating app is that all you have when you see someone in real life is their appearance, and you maybe can read their body language and maybe you can make eye contact with them. But on a dating app, you have maybe the fact that they smoke or whether they take drugs. You have all of these different bits of information about them. You might even have, do they have children? Do they want children? All of this stuff. And it's all it can be quite superficial information to a degree. And I think what happens is you then start using that information to make all sorts of judgments about someone. You start to become incredibly picky because you're like, oh, they're under 6 foot, no, swipe left, no. And because there are so many people, you can be that picky, It very much relies on your idea of what is a perfect partner for you, which might be completely wrong, and it often 100%.
Is. 100%, and I think that before I met my boyfriend, there would be certain, I think he's a beautiful person, but there'd be certain characteristics that I wouldn't have said, yes, I want that. Like, he's very energetic, very fun, very outgoing, and very loud. And actually, I probably would have ruled him out before.
Yeah, well, that's the magic of it, isn't it? And I think that's why when you are on a dating app, you should be less picky, because ultimately, the person who is on that screen could be very different from the person who is in front of you, and you might have all of these unexpected things in common and ways that you can connect with them.
But also, the way you describe yourself may not actually be the way you are, because you can have a perception of yourself and you can create a dating app profile, but actually, who are you to say that's who you are?
Definitely. I think a dating app profile is very similar to someone's social media profile, particularly Instagram. It's like you cherry pick these bits of information about you, which might not be completely true. I've definitely lied about my height on a dating app. It's never going to be completely a completely accurate reflection of who you are. It's going to be a version of who you are.
Do you think a lot of people are looking for fun rather than relationships on dating apps?
Yeah, I think it's about half-half. There are certain dating apps that definitely market themselves more as kind of relationship apps. So it kind of depends. I think the most important thing is to just be very upfront with who you are talking to about what you're looking for, because otherwise that's when people get hurt. And I think it's just good to be very honest and just communicate openly as much as you can from as early on as you can.
And what are the differences in experiences between men and women on dating apps?
So a lot of research says that there are more men than women on dating apps, and that men are generally kind of less satisfied with their experience on dating apps than women. But to be honest, I think all of these stats you have to take with a bit of a pinch of salt. Like, anecdotally, myself and my female friends have struggled on dating apps a lot, and it's not like we feel there are plenty of men to choose from, and we have the pick of the bunch. I think it very much depends on what you're looking for and your experience.
What do you do in a situation where you've met someone on a dating app, they look incredible, and then you meet them in real life and they don't look the same?
I think keep an open mind, first of all. Obviously if someone has completely lied about what they look like, then definitely run. But if they just look a little bit different to how you expected, and maybe their photos were a bit old and they don't necessarily reflect what they look like today, I think keep an open mind and try and get to know them and give them a chance before you reject them, because you never know, they could surprise you.
How do you decipher those intentions?
I think you need to make a judgment based on how often someone is talking to you, how many questions they're asking you, how interested they kind of genuinely seem in your life. But I always think with this kind of stuff, if you're not sure, just ask someone. And we need to get better at being vulnerable and open when we are talking about dating, because there is this fear of like, oh, if I break the ambiguity, if I'm not playing it cool, they're gonna not like me, they're gonna run away from me. And it might not be the sexiest thing in the world, but it's gonna stop you from getting hurt, isn't it?
Do you think dating apps are good? Do you think they're beneficial?
I think they can be, and I think if you have a particularly busy job or you live in a particularly rural part of the world and you're not necessarily having those kind of real life encounters that much and those opportunities to meet people, then it's great. And also, I think we live in a very different world now where people don't meet each other in real life.
So are we both in agreement that online love can definitely lead to love in the flesh?
It definitely can. It might not be easy, but it definitely can happen.